Well, that takes us way back. Your mom and you were living next door to a friend of mine who had 5 children who I babysat for. And Betty insisted on taking me down to meet Marge. I wasn't interested because I was engaged to a girl back home. But we met Marge, met Jim, decided that he needed a father. And so that's how it started. And it moved rapidly because I was only there for a year in the Air Force taking my basic flight training. But then Marge and I got married a month before graduation and decided to stay there so grandparents could spoil Jim. Did a marvelous job. And stayed with them a lot. We had a lot of freedom. The beach in South Texas, Padre Island. So we stayed there 6 years, and then Mike was born. No, 5 years and Mike was born. And then we stayed there a short time and moved to Waco, Texas.
Well, let's go back. Tell me about the wedding and what happened and all the things that happened then and your honeymoon. Wasn't Mom sick?
Oh yeah. Very interesting beginning. We decided to get married. Picked the date, August 18th, 1956. And it was a weekend, and we were married at your grandparent Hinckley's home in Los Fresnos because they had a beautiful garden. She was just master of producing plants and flowers and all the wedding pictures there in the backyard. And so we had the wedding and the celebration and everything, and we went back to Harlingen where Marge had a house. Jim stayed with the parents, and I guess about early evening, I touched her and she was red hot. So I said, "Get in the car, we'll go to the doctor." We went to the doctor. She had 105 fever. That is very high for an adult. Anyway, we never did figure out, except the excitement of the wedding, why she'd run a fever like that. Never did figure it out. Anyway, I think they kept her overnight and gave her treatment, sent her home. Then our honeymoon consisted of 30 days of Air Force training to finish my class. And honeymoon, we didn't have a honeymoon.
I thought you went to Canada.
Oh, okay, that was later. We had a delayed honeymoon. And we went up to Wyoming to introduce Marge to my parents that hadn't met her, my family. I had a large family in Wyoming at that time. And I'm the youngest of 9 in my family, so they were all available, all gone now ahead of me. And then we decided to go to Canada because Wyoming is close to Canada. So we drove up to Canada and went to Lake Louise and Banff National Park in Canada. Marvelous, beautiful place, Canada.
That must have been the next summer? You were married in August.
Well, I had leave after I graduated in September. Graduated the 20th of September, so I had leave. And we took leave between assignments and went to Wyoming and to Canada. So it was fall. It was cool, but it was nice. And where else did we go? That was the main attraction. There's Banff and Lake Louise. And,
so let's go back to Harlingen. You went there to learn how to be a navigator. Is that why you originally went there?
I went to Navigator Training School at Harlingen Air Force Base. And your mom had come back and rented a house next to my friend's just off the base. That's how I met you and your mom.
And why didn't she want to live with her parents?
I think she was quite an independent person. And
did she have a job?
No, she had the widow benefits, and so she didn't have to work. And she didn't have a job till we moved to Washington, D.C. when you guys were bigger. 1960, I went to Colorado first, then to Washington, D.C. Well, she had a job in Colorado, too. When I was going to the University of Colorado to get my master's degree, courtesy of the Air Force. She worked rush Christmas and holidays at a department store. So we accumulated a lot of stuff in those stores at favorable prices because she was an employee.
So let's go back to Harlingen. So you would have been transferred somewhere else, but you decided to stay in Harlingen, and what did you, or you requested to stay, what did you do there?
Well, my choice of staying in Harlingen, because we were already married, if I could get the choice job in Germany that I wanted, I would take that. If not, I'd stay there and be an instructor. Well, the Lord chose to have me stay and be an instructor so your grandparents could share you.
So you were an instructor. How did you go from just being a student of navigation to an instructor of navigation?
I went to a special instructor navigational course to teach classroom and air flight instruction to basic navigators that I had just graduated from. So I went from being a trainee to a instructor.
So tell us about what that job was. How did you train them? And you had some stories about some of your training flights.
We had classroom instruction to teach them what they were going to do when they got in an airplane, and taught the different systems of navigation: radar, LORAN, celestial, and everything basic to being a navigator. And
are y'all checking in or checking out?
We're checking out in a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to disturb you.
Go ahead.
Well, I need to, if they don't mind.
So, didn't you have a interesting training flight that you had to cancel in the middle of it? Tell me about that one.
well, we flew many interesting flights out of Harlingen, training navigators. We could go north in Texas, go east, west, and never get out of the state of Texas and complete a navigational flight. Then we'd fly to Florida, then we'd fly to Bermuda, forget over ocean training, and across the Gulf for the over water training. And we were flying one day along the coast, and we were flying into a thunderhead, and which is dangerous in any airplane. And I instructed the pilots to fly around it and they totally blew me off and ignored me because I was only a lieutenant, and they were captain. So we flew into it, and all of a sudden we were up 1,000, down 1,000. We thought we were going to tear the wings off the airplane. So I went to the private intercom, only went to my students, and I told them, I'm going to take you to the normal intercom where the pilots can hear us after this. This is not a drill. The mission is canceled. Put on your parachutes. Get ready for a bailout. And then I said, switch to normal interphone, and I re-instructed them the same thing. Mission canceled, not a drill, put your parachutes on, we're going into really rough weather. And of course, the pilot thing, after we're up 1,000, down 1,000, and all over the sky, asked me for a heading. So I said 90 degrees, either way. Turn and get out of this storm before this weather rips their wings off this airplane.
Now, when they ask you for a heading, what does that mean exactly?
What direction to point the airplane. North, east, west, south. And I gave them headings on radar. Using radar, I gave them headings to escape the storm. And we escaped with the airplane still intact and flew it home and canceled another mission.